Just one verse. 2 Chronicles chapter 32 and verse number 20 says this: King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, cried out in prayer to heaven about this. Now Hezekiah is a fascinating character. He does really well, and the Bible tells us in the previous chapters he prospered. He did what God said and he prospered. Things were going well. And then suddenly into his life comes a king called Sennacherib, king of Assyria, and he's been wiping out towns and cities and nations and defeating other armies and making a fool of their gods, really. And so he comes to Jerusalem and he shouts out, or he sends messages to shout out to the people of Jerusalem, your God is no different to any other God. And the people listen to this. And that's what Hezekiah and Isaiah bring to God. They've been doing really well, and suddenly against them comes a mighty soldier, a mighty army. And he's reducing their God to the same gods as other nations, stone and silver and gold and metal. And that's what they bring to the God of heaven. They didn't allow some other person to tell them or influence them in thinking their God was small. And Hezekiah and Isaiah get together and they bring this specific thing to God. This enemy that was going to destroy them or threaten to destroy them. And they bring that specific thing to God. They got together and prayed. You know, prayer is a wonderful thing. As you read on in those chapters, you find that God sent an angel and delivered Jerusalem from Sennacherib, this arrogant man who thought he was the best in anything. God humbled him and he goes back home and he comes to a sad end, really. But I think this verse just reminds me that I mustn't let anybody tell me that my God isn't great, that my God isn't almighty, that my God cannot solve problems and deal with issues. Hezekiah was a man who later on in his life made a mistake. We all make mistakes, but here Hezekiah is confident in his God. And I just think this one verse reminds us, don't let anybody tell us that our God is not great. Our God is not bigger than any other God that people can make. He's a God with a capital G and a capital A. He is Almighty God. And to get together with somebody else and pray about things, specifically about items and issues, I think it's good. And we need to do that more perhaps. We're facing big issues in our world at the moment. But our God is bigger. Our God is greater. We face things in our personal life. Our God is bigger and our God is greater. And let's not let anybody tell us that our God cannot deal with the problems that we face. Hezekiah and Isaiah got together and they prayed and they cried out to heaven and their God heard them. Our God is Almighty God. It's just one verse. Let's not let anybody tell us that our God is not almighty.